It's a company people don't think about a lot, and a lot of people haven't heard of it.
These might be some older companies, but everything is changing thanks to AI.
We're looking for companies that are using AI to change their business.
Joe Austin with Chaikin Analytics is looking at a new approach to how you can profit from AI.
And if you start to look across industries, you'll see that they follow some pretty common patterns in terms of how they deploy AI.
It's a different way of looking at AI, and it might lead you to some names you haven't heard of before. Let's dive in. Well, today we are so excited to have Joe Austin from Chaikin Analytics with us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We are talking about the topic that every investor talks about, and that's AI. But so many people are in AI stocks. You are really looking at which companies are using AI to their benefit. In your new newsletter called Breakthrough Investor, tell us about what specifically you're looking for when you're looking to pick out stock recommendations.
Sure. Well, my background is as a technology analyst. I started covering technology in 1985 and kind of grew up with the business. And when I joined Mark, we were looking for ways, the AI stocks were already very hot. Everyone knew Nvidia. Everybody knew Palantir. And one of the things we wanted to do was bring our subscribers names that they hadn't heard about, but that still fit within the AI theme. One of the things that I saw with the web browser, or whether it was the internet or all these things in the past, was that sometimes the companies that built the infrastructure may or may not have made a lot of money, but who really made the money were the people that deployed the technology into their business and improved their business. So that's the idea behind Breakthrough Investor. We're looking for companies that are using AI to change their business, to bring about real change in their business, and hopefully for the good and create value for shareholders.
Yeah, I think this is a really unique opportunity area because there's so many companies out there already. We know AI is changing everything in every industry. So the companies that do that well, even if they're a company that's been around for a long time, we know that they're going to have even more success. So I'm excited to see the 3 stocks you have for us. Before we get into those stocks, let's just talk about the different areas of this Breakthrough Investor. I think there's 4 different areas that you're looking at.
Sure. So one of the things we wanted to do is everybody says they're deploying AI. No one's going to say we're not looking at it or we're not using it. So what we thought we needed was a framework to evaluate how AI is being implemented. And then from that, you can use that as a baseline to judge whether they're doing a good job or not. So from that, I came up with what I call my 4 vectors of deployment. The first is design and discovery. And that's where a company is using modeling or AI to reach new markets, create new products, or it can use custom advertising to reach a whole new customer base that they never have before. The second is called intelligent agents. And we've probably all used a chatbot or been on a chatbot on a website. And so intelligent agents are not only responding to customer questions, but also helping salespeople and anyone dealing with a customer make a better connection to the customer. The third is what I call the Internet of Things. AI changes the Internet of Things dramatically because it greatly enhances the feedback loop. So whether you could have, in the past, you would have a sensor on a pipeline that would say the pressure is high, but now with AI, you can go in and adjust the pressure. So that's the third vector. The fourth vector is what I call capital efficiency, and that is really focused on supply chain is the easiest example there, a company trying to lower their costs. But it's also, if you think about an insurance company when they're underwriting risk, it's ways for them to improve the underwriting process. And if you start to look across certain industries or industry groups, you'll see that they follow some pretty common patterns in terms of how they deploy AI.
Very interesting. And again, it applies to almost every industry out there. So I'm interested to see which industries we're going to cover with the stock list today.
Sure.
Let's get into the first company that you have for us today.
So the first company was one of our initial recommendations. It's a company called Interactive Brokers. And if you're an active trader of stocks, you either use this company or you've heard of this company. It was founded by a guy named Thomas Peterffy, who was a Hungarian immigrant. And I say that Interactive Brokers is a tech company masquerading as a brokerage firm because this company has, I think, an 86% operating margin. They are fully operated from top to bottom. If you've ever had an account there, you know it's virtually impossible to get a person on the phone because they actively deploy, they use AI to manage the entire customer process. And they handle trading for everything from the world's largest hedge funds to the world's smallest investors. And what they do is they develop the technology for their largest clients and deploy it into the retail base. So if you're trading with Interactive Brokers, you basically get the best technology for a very low cost. I mentioned earlier that they're deploying it to really manage the customer relationships, but they've also been responsible for a lot of the biggest technology innovations in brokerage over the decades, and they're still continuing to lead the world in terms of innovation in that field.
Yeah, this is so fascinating because this company's been around for a really long time. Have we seen any of these changes show up in their chart yet?
Well, it's been a monster stock. It's been a good recommendation for us, and it's one we've liked for a while. I would say that you have to look at the operating margin, and if you're operating at 80% plus operating margin, you're not going to be able to improve on that a lot. That's pretty much at the top of the pack to begin with. But I think that allows them to stay in that position. Brokerage is a cutthroat business. And so that allows them to stay ahead of the pack. So that's the way I see the value being added there. They've also got another business that I found very interesting, which has a little bit to do with AI, but not a lot to do with AI. And that's they're getting into what are called prediction markets. And you're probably familiar with a company called Kalshi, which is where you can bet on the outcome of a baseball game or a football game, or whether it's going to rain tomorrow, or whether Trump's going to win the election or something like that. So they're getting into the prediction markets business, but I think they're in a very unique spot to do it because they already have almost 4 million customers and they operate in 38 countries around the globe. So these markets in a lot of places are highly regulated, and they have the regulatory infrastructure all around the world today to really roll this out across the world. And I think it's going to be a big business for them going forward.
Yeah, another potential catalyst coming down the road for this one.
Yes.
Interesting company, not one we've talked about on the channel before, so thank you for bringing that one. Which vector does this one fall into?
This is really the intelligent agents. And then they've also got, I would say they've got a little bit of a design and discovery aspect of it too. One of the other ways we see great value being created with AI is through data sets. And if a company has a huge amount of data, think Reddit, think Netflix, they know what you like, they think Meta. They've got a lot of data on you. So they can train that data to solve customer problems. And here's Interactive Brokers operating for the world's largest hedge funds again, and the world's smallest investors. So the amount of information and order flow they get on a daily basis is tremendous. So they're using that they have a product called iBot, which will basically is a language-driven investment research tool. So you can tell it, give me a 6-year chart of Google sales, and it'll produce a 6-year chart of Google sales. Or find me all the companies with a PE of 22. It'll find you all the companies with a PE of 22. So this will be, I think, a major leap for the company, and it's something we don't see anyone else really doing.
Again, super interesting company, a lot of potential on the horizon. Thank you for that one. Let's get on to the second company you have that falls into this category.
Okay, the second one I like is really a household name. It's called Roku, and most all of us have a Roku in our house. You're familiar with the Roku stick, but this is a company that previously sold hardware and is going into the software business. They made a decision several years ago to not stop selling sticks, but de-emphasize selling sticks and sell their software as an operating system for a smart television. And that brought them a particularly unique asset in that they now are in 90 million households around the world. Everyone's going to streaming these days. And what happens in streaming is it dramatically fragments the market. And so for an advertiser to try to are they going to advertise on Disney Plus? Are they going to advertise on Hulu? They have to look at all these different places. And the risk is they show you too many of the same ad all the time. If you've been on Instagram, you know you get the same ads over and over again. And so what they're doing is I mentioned they were becoming a software company. Given this embedded base of users, they're taking an Instagram approach to helping you find TV content. So they're going to be the Sherpa, if you will, to help you figure out if you like that show, you're going to love this show, or if you didn't like that show, don't show you that again. So I think it's an exciting use, and that's all driven by AI. And it's much the same as the model behind Instagram or Google or things like that.
That is so interesting and useful. As a consumer and a user, you're excited to see these advances. What does it mean, though, for revenue for Roku? Is there more advertising potential? And do you see that the growth coming for the company?
Yes, it will be an advertising company. They just signed a deal with Amazon that gives them access to, I believe it's 80% of the households in the United States to play advertising into. And this is a particular interest to advertising. Their advertising business is growing like a weed. Roku hadn't made a profit for several years. They just turned profitable. They've turned cash flow positive. They're initiating a small, I call it a drop in the bucket share repurchase program, but they are buying back stock. But basically, you have this tremendous asset in the audience. And I think irrespective of what happens to the company a year or two from now, that audience is worth a lot of money to somebody. And so I think that could be, it'd be an attractive acquisition for someone down the road. But again, this is a company, been around for a while, but that's actively using AI, and it's really changing their business.
Yeah, so interesting to see how AI can completely change a company's value, their even value proposition, and the way the company operates. So I love looking at companies this way. Let's get on to that third company you have.
Okay, the third company I'm going to talk about is called TE Connectivity. The symbol is TEL. And this is on the surface, a very boring company. They make connectors, all the little special plugs and things in your car or in they came out of the auto business, in the electronics business, all the special plugs and connectors that you use. But they are a play into the Internet of Things. And I mentioned the Internet of Things earlier. The Internet of Things, the devices connected to the Internet of Things is growing about 14% a year, and the market for the Internet of Things is growing at about 20% a year. And through 2032, it's expected to double revenues in the Internet of Things. And I mentioned that feedback loop. And we like TE Connectivity because it's kind of like the picks and shovels of the Internet of Things. It's a company people don't think about a lot, and a lot of people haven't heard of it. But they're basically, the cool thing about the Internet of Things, I mentioned it's growing, but it's also got a very, very quick refresh cycle, and this stuff wears out a lot. And if you're operating a pipeline and you've got a leak somewhere, once that thing is detected, you got to make sure that thing's working all the time. And if you've used a home security, I don't know if you have a home security system or not, but these things go, they become obsolete after about 3 years. So you've had all this stuff out there. So they're benefiting from a refresh cycle on the existing infrastructure, plus a growth in the business generally. And they're also a big play, and you hear about all these data centers being built. That's a huge business for them too. So this one is another one. It's an old line. I would have called it an old line industrial company, which it's kind of not, but it has all the flavors of an old line industrial company, but it's really benefiting from the proliferation of AI in the Internet of Things.
This is so interesting how AI is involved in this company. Like you said, a boring company that's more in the manufacturing field. Let's talk about how much of an impact this AI change is going to have on their bottom line.
This company operates at very low margins. Where it's having the biggest impact is on the top line. And their sales growth is starting to accelerate for the first time in years. And they've made a lot of acquisitions, and the numbers, after the accounting and all that. But basically you have an acceleration in the sales because of this. And we're seeing that in the stock price too. I will say this is a stock that's done the best since we launched Breakthrough Investor. So it's above our buy target right now, but we've got others in the hopper that look similar, and I'm going to be writing about those in the months to come.
Yeah, and that's what Breakthrough Investor is about. And for our viewers out there,
if you want to learn more about the Breakthrough Investor or what the Power Gauge has to say about the 3 stocks that we mentioned here today, you can scan the QR code or click that link we have for you in the description. This is just a way to kind of continue your education and your own research on the stocks that we talked about here today. Again, this channel is not about giving any specific financial advice or buy recommendations. It's about talking about stock ideas so you can do some of your own research. This link and this QR code will get you to more information on the stocks we covered here today.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're looking for in the Power Gauge on these 3 stocks.
One thing about Breakthrough Investor is that the Power Gauge drives everything we do. When I talked to Mark about coming up with this product, we're not looking for things the Power Gauge doesn't like. And in fact, when we've had to pull back recommendations of a couple of stocks because the Power Gauge turned negative. But we always follow what the Power Gauge does. And I'm not going to give you the Power Gauge pitch, but it's a really great tool to have. So we first look for companies that the Power Gauge rates bullish or very bullish. We've then applied a second filter to that, which is unique to Breakthrough Investor, which is called our EQ filter, or earnings quality filter. Early on in my career, I was a short seller. I looked for short candidates in stocks. And the way you do that is you look for companies with poor earnings quality. Poor earnings quality means 2 things. Number one, the business converts very little of its earnings into cash, or else a lot of its earnings come from what are known as accruals or accounting entries. Now, these things happen every day, and it's not the sign of a bad business just because they have a lot of accruals. It's a risk factor in a business. And I always use the analogy of 2 companies that may sell something for $10,000 and take a $2,000 profit. Their earnings are the same. But if one of the companies takes a note for that as payment, one company gets cash, the other one gets a note, the cash company has converted 100% of those earnings to cash, and they have no accruals. The second company has converted none of that money to cash, and they have very high accruals. And those are the ways, as a short seller, you identify businesses that are weak. And so we've applied that EQ filter to our recommendations. And what we're looking for at Breakthrough Investor is what we call the rare double bullish signal, which we get. It's very interesting. I look at a run of 4,000 companies every week, and it's usually about 110 companies have that double bullish signal. So it's a little bit of a needle in the haystack in terms of finding good investment ideas. And for me, when I recommend a stock to people, I'm recommending it as if it were my own money. And so I'm very, very focused on risk in terms of what we recommend. And so we've used these two proprietary filters, the power gauge, which is tremendous, plus the EQ as an added layer onto that to find great ideas.
I love this. It's a different way of looking at stocks. And again, it can be so hard to find ones that you feel confident about. So your newsletter is a great way to do that. Thank you again for coming on to share these stocks with our viewers and to share another way to look at investing with our viewers too.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure being here.
Yes. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are these some of the companies that you're looking at too, seeing which companies are implementing AI well and how that could benefit them in the future too? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, everyone. Happy investing.